So we're gonna do unit 7 today. Let me make sure I have my transcript. And we are going to talk about attacks today. So let me share the screen real quick. So if you just got in, make sure you download the notes and take a look at your assignment. On Wednesday, we'll do a lab. I'm thinking we're gonna do a little bit of brute force and firewall this week. So, all right. Hi, how are you doing? Good, thanks. So check out our notes and our assignment for today. About 3:15, Rosalind Rivas might stop by. She's gonna talk to you about exam voucher and apprenticeship. Okay. So I think they're getting ready to dispense the voucher. So as you complete this class, you can get the voucher for Security Plus. Yeah. Okay. So in chapter 7, from the previous edition, which is the prior Security Plus exam compared to the new one, the content is a little bit different. So they expanded on the area of cyber kill chain. And cyber kill chain and consists of just looking at how you're going to be able to identify the target and then looking at your resources. That could be systems and tools that things that you would use to be able to destroy the target. So this is the cyber kill chain was actually created by Lockheed Martin. And in the cyber kill chain, you have these 7 phases. So it's going to be very similar to what you see in the cyber attack, but there's some slight difference, right? So the stages are going to be similar. So the first stage is the recon. It is almost exactly the same as if someone was attacking normally. So that's gathering information and researching and then identify the potential and select the target. So in this phase, you will get as much information as you can, and that will be part of number 1. So let me put that up. So the second phase would be weaponization, and depending on the objective of the cyber kill chain or what they want to do, right? What kind of target they selected. So weaponization usually consists of malware. It could be ransomware, it could be Trojan. A lot of the time it's Trojan because that's how they can funnel in, funnel in other things in addition to malware. And in addition to that, we can also embed in the payload. And payload is used for attack, whether it's brute force over the network, or you would see payload being used for different areas, including wireless. So in weaponization, usually that consists of different areas, and a lot of the times you would see malware, right, and payload. The third phase is going to be delivery. So once they choose their weapon, they will deliver. So that's simply just transmitting to the target, right? Submitting that to the destination, and you don't have to put this verbatim. You can summarize it if you want. So if the attacker decided to use malware, the attacker must decide on how malware can be delivered. A lot of times, the majority of the times, that can be as an attachment in the email, right? Or it could be embedded via websites and so on. So often that you would see, Trojan will be coming through as an attachment in the email to fish out account access and other information. And also they can incorporate other malware. So that's the third stage of delivery. Next, after that, that will be exploitation. So this would activate exploit, and there are different exploit kits depending on the operating system, the objective, the target. The majority of the exploit really target applications, and the majority of our applications now are web-based. So you see exploit kits that's capable of taking advantage of the vulnerability of the applications and the protocols that's used by the application or the web application. In addition to that, we also see exploit kit take advantage of operating system vulnerability, such as Windows, right? We saw last week, we talked about CVEs in applications and OS. OS is a software, so there's always a vulnerability in different type of software. So after exploitation, normally, bless you, they would install Trojan or backdoor. Backdoor allows them to get back in with the higher access privilege, or using RAT, which is a Trojan-based type of malware that allows the attacker to really persist over time through the exploit environment. So looking at cyber kill chain, if somebody wants to pursue a target, right, has to do a lot of homework, has to have appropriate tools depending on the scope of the target and what they want to achieve. So after the installation of Trojan and or backdoor, the next will be command and control. And this is often for the systems that they want to remotely control. Sometimes that could be industrial controllers, right? Things for your power grid, gas line, water line, etc. All of those are internet connected. So they usually would infect those systems by sending out beaconing or looking for those systems and information about the system since the first stage, but using the channel to be able to get access to different type of servers or SCADA systems and so on. And then lastly, that will be the actions and objectives. The attacker will begin to take action to achieve a certain goal. Sometimes that could be leaking data. Sometime in the ransomware case, that will be encrypting storage drive that contains data, or exfiltration, right? Or sometimes it would just be taking down a certain system to make the service unavailable using different type of tools. It could be malware, it could be continuous request. So in a lot of times what you see is, depending on the complex level of the attack, the last stage is going to be what they want to gain from the overall attack. And if it's monetary incentive, right, they would usually take data for exchange of money, or in the case of ransomware, that will be a ransom that they're going to ask for. Okay, so you would see encryption. Why do we want to look at these areas? Is because in a network monitoring sense, when you go through each of the stages, you actually can look at different areas like examining log files. So in the last stage, as we are looking at actions, if they're encrypting remotely, right, you are going to see a lot of encrypted traffic. If they're extracting data, you can monitor that through the audit of what kind of permissions that has been granted to certain objects. So those are the phases for the cyber kill chain. And this is a new area that's included in the Security Plus and also your textbook. Any question? So as we look through the cyber kill chain, you can also find this on the page 1 of your notes. The second part is going to be on the diamond model of intrusion. And this is a little bit different than what you've seen in the cyber kill chain, but the whole point is that we want to come back and think about the overall approach on how the phases in the cyber kill chain is mapped to a certain area. Okay, so in the model, there are 4 elements that you want to look at. Let me move this down a little bit. Okay, So the first is adversary, and this is usually can be identified via email addresses, membership, APT information, group membership. So basically that will be identifying certain individual that's involved in the cyber kill chain. And that could be a victim or it could be an attacker. Then the second element is going to be the capability of the attacker. So what is the potential or the type of weapons that they would use? So this is going to map to weaponization, the type of exploit, the malware, right? The tools for the intrusion. So that will be the capabilities. Third is the infrastructure. That will be your domain, your servers, your email addresses, your IP addresses, or even MAC addresses by the adversary. So when they're entering your network, right, they have to go through the firewall and your router and your switches. And all of these systems keep logs of who they are. And so coming in, they have to impersonate to be a system that belongs to your network. Now, if the firewall doesn't detect it, it's because they bypass it by impersonating a system on the inside that's granted for the policy to be able to access. Or they could use somebody's credential remotely accessing from home, right? So then you have to look at their email addresses, their login, some of the information. So, and what area of your infrastructure they're accessing? Is it web application server? Is it gonna be, you know, your domain overall? What area of the infrastructure is it? Are they accessing? And then the last area that we want to look at is the victim, which is the target. And usually that will be login names, identified by login names or user account, email addresses, and or sometimes they are just systems, right? So when you're looking at ICS, industrial controller systems, they're just IP addresses. There's no human that's involved. Everything is automated. So we have to identify the objects, right? That could be a target or a subject that could be a target. So this diamond model of intrusion really map to all the areas or the faces of the cyber kill chain. Any question? So make sure that we know this, right? Security Plus will ask you questions about these. Okay, so moving to the next part, it's gonna go over Mitra attack. And it is different than your cyber kill chain. How is it different? It doesn't really contain a procedure or a list of steps to start from the, you know, like how we would have cyber kill chain, we actually have the phases from phase 1 through phase 7. In the Mitra attack, it does not contain the procedure of attack, right? There's no recon at the beginning, but what it contains is a list or a matrix of tactics and techniques that's used by attacker in different stages. So what they did was they took the cyber kill chain procedure and they break it down to different tactics and techniques, and they put it into a matrix, like a table. And so because sometimes you will have in one stage of the cyber kill chain or the stage of attack, you would see that there are many different type of techniques, right? Even to do the same thing. So for example, if someone wants to obtain access as an admin in that network, there's several ways to do that, right? We can do the tried and true way, which is going to be your brute force, right? But normally our system will pick that up, or account lockout policy would be applied. So they would come up with different tactics such as brute force or to phish right? To lure the victim to put in the user account information or to really sniff out password information as the user is logging in remotely using the weakness of your protocol and your system configuration. So there are many different tactics that they can use in order to attack something. So what are some of the tactics, right? That could be initial access. So they need to be able to access certain resources. For example, network drives or your domain. Then they want to run some kind of applications or some kind of script, right? So there got to be some execution that happens. Normally, that will be a script. That would be a tool, right? So you can write a script to brute force something, but you need to be able to access the right area to brute force a certain server. We don't want to brute force everything. That was going to take a long time. So we want to focus on one target, and we have to access that area of the target. We're going to execute, and persistence, all that is just maintaining access. So once I'm in and I run my script, I want to make sure that I'm under the radar and I'm staying in, right? I don't get kicked out. Then I will escalate my privilege so I can go from possibly a lower user to more of a privileged user or more powerful user in order to access other resources. Then I would evade intrusion prevention system, possibly encrypting my traffic and avoid detection system from picking me up. And then I would see what other areas I can access, right? So credential access discovery, all that is looking at what kind of access I would have across the infrastructure. And then I would move laterally. I would see what things I can utilize. And so what things I can modify, change, or extract. Then I would collect and exfiltrate. That means that I would gather the data that I need and I will send that out. And normally, if they are automating this, they would run a script that's gonna connect to an external server that's gonna send data automatically, okay? Instead of just putting it into an email and attach it and so on, because that can be blocked. We can also block server traffic too, but cleverness is gonna be how they're gonna be able to extract that and send that without being noticed, okay? Then once that happens, that will be command and control. That means that they will take over and completely control a certain system. So if someone wants to shut down the power grid, right, they have to go through the process. And in this sense, the list of tactics will allow them to flexibly move in different areas and not necessarily having to follow a procedure. Any question? And you can find all of this in your textbook and also your chapter 7 notes. I included this there. Let's talk about number 5. So when you get to number 5, I want you to go visit the site. You don't have to list everything on there. It's a lot, right? And I just want you to pick one, right, technique for each of the tactics. Okay, so if I'm reconning, what do I do? Okay, and you don't have to put exactly like what I have. Oh, let me copy the link. So when you visit the site, if you scroll down, you will find this huge table. Okay, so each of the technique, so they have 10 techniques here, 7 techniques here. So for each of the tactic, I want you to pick out a technique, okay? And you can thematically choose depending on what you want to approach. So what I did was I put down that for recon reconnaissance, I would use active scan, and that's invasive scanning, things like Nmap. And so that way I can look at open ports, right? Operating system, what kind of IP they're using, how many hops, how many routers are they using? Are there any kind of defensive system? And I can do that externally as long as I can find some target to start. So when you recon, what you're doing is you're gathering information, and like what we did last week, right? We can enumerate the DNS. We can look at the DNS record. We can DNS map. There are a lot of different types of scanners that you can use, okay? So after that, I can go into resource development. What kind of resources do I have? So once you gather the information, and that could be from like your Instagram social media account, then you would list possibly the compromised account, right? People that would give up their username and password. And I want to use that compromised account or potentially get a compromised account. That's my goal. And I can fish that out. So I can send a bunch of emails or a text message to users, and then hopefully they'll fill it out and give me some information. Then I can execute, and in this space, usually it's scripting, okay? Command and scripting. So I can script to execute a certain command. There are tons of Python library that will be able to do that. Or you can also have ready-built exploit kits, right? That you can find in either the regular web or the dark or the deep web. Persistence, that will entail other things in addition to account manipulation. So I can change account configuration so that way I can stay in and not be detected. Then I can also escalate, so I can gain access at the higher level if I manipulate access token. Almost all network systems have some form of access token that's passed. For example, when you log into your student account, right, at a certain system here, right, it brings down your security profile, and that what grants you the access token to different areas. Access token is used for a lot of other API, right? Applications that talk to other applications, as you can see, right? So we can gain access token and change access token setting. Then we can evade defense, so I can hide artifacts, and that is an art of obfuscation, right? That's about hiding things where they don't look. So I can embed that into files. I can put into archives things that they haven't looked for a long time. Okay, things that are not being regularly monitored. Then if I need additional credential access, I can brute force my way through, and that can be a lot of things. All the servers, or sometimes certain servers, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be an account username and password, but we can look at, you know, automated systems and things like that. So you pick out from that table, right, one of the technique in each of the area. Then in discovery, if I brute force, right, I might need to also look at the password policy discovery, because if they have account lockout, I won't be able to, I won't be successful if I'm brute forcing. So I have to find ways to disable that policy as well. So a successful attacker is multifaceted, right? You have to look at hurdles and things. So then if you think about a successful attacker, then you have to make sure that your defense mechanism is also multifaceted. Then when I move laterally, I can also spearfish. I would target a certain group to make sure that I have additional access with their credential or the information that I can gain from that. So what can I collect? I can collect a lot of things. Web application, that's browser oriented or web oriented. So if I do a session hijack, what that will do is it's going to take over, right, that particular session. I can do URL hijacking, click hijacking. There's a lot of different areas that you can tap into when you want to collect something. Now, command and control, since it's related to scripting, I have to do some data encoding or decoding there. Okay, because every system uses some form of encoding. The normal encoding that you see with web application is UTF-8 or ASCII. Okay, but when you're dealing with ICS or industrial controller systems or other type of system, you have to see what type of encoding and decoding that's needed. And sometimes that could be encryption and decryption. Then in exfiltration, and that's about sending out data to external entity, right? I would automate that. So whenever, let's say that I wanted to take data from the network drive and I did it in the middle of the week, right? Sometime later that week, they added more data. So I don't want to go back and do it all over again, right? Because they could detect me. So I would add a script, and so it would check for any time, right? Certain archive attributes is modified, then it's just gonna grab the file or read the file and then sends it to a server that's connecting, right? And in programming, that's fairly easy. Okay, so we can set up a script, possibly like maybe 5 lines. And then as long as we can send that out to a legitimate or an active connection, that should be all right. Okay. So, and then lastly, the impact. And so that's going to be your ultimate goal, right? A lot of times it's about data destruction. So not only that they steal data, they also can destroy data. And when you look at like from a ransomware perspective, right, when they encrypt that, your data is gone. You have to decrypt in order to access it. And sometimes even when they use, right, encryption that won't allow you to decrypt, even when you pay for ransom, then your data is destroyed. Any question? Okay, so if you want to pursue ethical hacking or you want to be a pen tester, pay close attention to the matrix that's given there, right? Explore different, and so they put together, and that's always going to grow. So as you know, if you look at it a year from now, that list is going to be different, and that's, this industry is like that all the time. There's things that change all the time. Okay, certain things are going to be basic forever, but there are things that are changing. Okay. All right. Okay, so you can find this on the notes, and the next part is going to be denial of services. Okay, so denial of service, the difference between DOS and DDoS, right? Denial of service is when you have an attacker against one target. So if I'm targeting a web server, one web server, my machine, right? That's a DOS. It's just one-to-one. And so all I have to do is flood it. And you can flood a lot of things in the network. You can flood a switch, you can flood a router. So all you have to do is just submit requests to it, right? Especially for web server, if it's using, it's HTTP, so it has to respond and acknowledge because it's using TCP. So when you do that, all you have to do is submit requests. You can ping somebody continuously. Okay. Now distributed denial of service, I can use 150 systems to attack one web server. And that's the main difference is the DDoS, you're going to use many systems against a single target. So on the map, when you're looking at the attack map, when you see like when it gives you the visualization, you see a bunch of traffic just dumping onto one server, that's a DDoS. Okay. And then once in a while you see little shooting arrow from 1 to 1, that's a DOS. Nowadays, it's more efficient for the attacker to do a DDoS. Okay. So, but it's resource intensive in that they have to take over the zombie, or they have to have all of these systems that are connected to launch the attack all together at once. Okay, so to answer that question, right, we find that on our notes, one attacker against one target for DOS, distributed DOS, that will be attacker from 2 or more computers against a single target. Now, you will find also, right, or you have probably heard or seen or done spoofing. So when you hear the term spoofing, all that is it's to masquerade, right, in a network, masquerade your IP or your MAC address. So why do I need to masquerade or cover up I use somebody else's MAC, right? I don't want to use my real MAC address because I don't want to be identified. It's kind of like using a fake ID. That's not you, right? So to the system, it can only be identified by 2 areas. One is the MAC address, which is ingrained onto your network interface card, whether it's wireless or wired. Okay. So when they do that, they simply just use a software tool to overwhelm the switch and cause a MAC flood. Okay. Or they can just use a MAC address and then put that onto their system. But a lot of the times it's a flood. That's a lot easier to do. So on the wireless router at home, your router acts as a switch and a router, right? Internally, it's switching to all of these systems inside the network. And you can use it to MAC filter. So as it overwhelms, what it's going to do, it's not going to be able to function, right? It won't be able to store. They can also exhaust memory or storage of the switch because all switches or routing devices have RAM. Okay. So, and that would also bypass filtering because when you filter a MAC address on your router at home, it stores the specified MAC address onto RAM. So if you flood it, it's not going to be able to go and retrieve that from the memory location and be able to associate what's allowed and what's not allowed. You see? And so that's how they can bypass the point. So on the switches now, what you see is there's an option. If you enable that option, it prevents flood. So whenever that happens, it's gonna notify the administrator. Not only that, it's gonna disable the physical port because they have to come through a physical port. So what do I mean? If you're looking at a switch, that's like an actual connection where you plug in your Ethernet, and that's how they would use it. Okay. The second area is your IP spoofing. They can change the source, that's where the traffic is coming from, to make it look like it's originated from another system inside your network. Okay. And all they have to do is scan your network for a while and see what system is talking and then impersonate that system. Okay. And that would usually require an attack against a single system. So that way it looks like it's from another IP. So IP address spoofing is useful, right, for a system that could be detecting or filtering by IP and routing purposes. So MAC spoofing and IP spoofing, those are the 2 primary that you're going to see. Any question? Okay, so in TCP connection, right? We use our network, our internet is TCP, IP. So it needs to acknowledge and synchronize, right? You saw some of this when you ran Wireshark a few weeks back, that you see some SYN traffic and some ACK traffic. So in order to really communicate from one system to another, it has to acknowledge. Okay, so if I need to send something to Moses, I would say, hey, Moses, I'm going to send something over. And he has to say, hey, I'm ready, right? So in that case, you're going to have a SYN and an ACK. Okay, so if you are getting a SYN-ACK attack, what you need to do is, number one, you need to check your network traffic. If you monitor that closely, you would see a lot of it all together all the time, right? And then you also need to check your firewall rule, because they will flood the firewall by using SYN, because the firewall is going to accept, right? At least synchronize, it's going to say, hey, I'm here, send it to me. And so if your firewall will block that, it's going to prevent the SYN flood. Then if you're using VPN, you can implement VPN connection, so that way it's encrypting your traffic so they can't sniff it out and they can't intervene. Okay. Those are the three. I highlighted those because that's your ground. That needs to be implemented. Okay. Then the other areas, it comes with your users. Okay, so we need to control their access privileges, because possibly that their credentials jeopardized. And we also need to manage data classification. So there are different classes of data. So high priority, highly sensitive data needs to have higher permission control and less user access to it. Okay. And then we want to make sure that data backup. So those last three things, those things are just, a lot of it is just reactive. Okay. But the other are more preventive, the highlighted areas. Okay, any questions? So as you move through the notes, there's also this explanation on man in the middle of the attack. So it often is, the acronym is your MITM. So how can they do man in the middle, right? Normally, they would try to intercept your traffic. It's kind of like if I'm trying to pass something to Michael, and if you stand in the middle and you take whatever that I'm trying to pass to Michael and take it over, right? So that can be done with e-commerce site, with any kind of exchange of information. Okay. Now, in Windows environment, the first bullet is really talking about the Windows environment. That's Kerberos. And Kerberos is used for authentication in your Windows Server system. So when you authenticate to your email account here at RCCD, or your user account on your student portal, right? That uses Kerberos. And Kerberos implementation reduce, not remove completely, reduce the risk of mutual authentication, or the risk in mutual authentication being jeopardized. So the way that they can intervene is they would insert themselves, right, in the middle of the conversation. And normally they would scan your traffic, look at who is the destination, who is the source. So if I'm the computer A, that's the source, and I'm trying to send to B, right? They are going to do impersonation with the man in the middle. So they are going to intervene and get my computer to send the traffic to them instead of computer B. So normally you would see a man in the middle attack with another form of attack. Now, for the second bullet, it talks about cryptography or using encryption. So you can use encryption in authenticated session, especially when we're dealing with VPNs, right? There are different types of VPNs. Some VPNs are not as good as others, the technology and the protocol that's involved. So when you're using cryptography for your communication, such as SSH, right, to connect directly, or remote access or VPN, then your authenticated sessions require keys, and breaking keys or jeopardizing the keys takes time, and all we're doing is we're buying time, right? We're never 100% safe. So when you use cryptography in communication or in your authenticated session, that is just going to make the attack a little bit less effective, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that it's impossible. Okay. Any questions? Okay, so before I hit these, let's come back here. Okay, so we talked about make sure you look at the handshake. It talks about what SYNAC is. Okay, and then it also gives you the diagram. We talked about man in the middle. So your man in the middle is also known as the on-path attack. Okay, and eavesdropping is listening to traffic or monitoring traffic. They can also interrupt traffic, right? Cause a lot of noise, or cause your system to listen to their system instead. So the indicator for this, for the on-path, is your traffic might be delayed because they're gonna try to use encrypted traffic, and in order to get, once it gets to the destination, it has to decrypt. So you will have slight delay in the traffic. So when you monitor, if you see encrypted packets coming through, right, lots of it, that possibly be an on-path attack. They have new names to these now. So when you take this new Security Plus certification, make sure you know the new name. It is also man in the middle, but it's also known as an on-path attack. Okay. In the man in the middle, you also have man in the browser. And what they do is they use a proxy Trojan, and that can be infected from, attachment websites, or they can also use keylogger. That's also a Trojan, right? So when I say a Trojan, we covered this last time, is that it looks like something else, right? It might look like a regular file, but it is malicious. And so the one that you often see is called Zeus, and Zeus is a well-known keystroke loggers, right? It records your keystroke, and keyloggers are good for data capturing, account information capturing. Anything you type can be captured. Okay. Then they also do SSL stripping attack for those people who use HTTPS website, and it uses TLS or SSL. So it will intercept the TLS negotiation sessions, and then redirect traffic. So this often is, often web-based. So you get the user that it just reload their home page, or page cannot be found, and then they just click refresh, and then it goes, back to the home page again, right? For example, they're checking out their shopping cart. They can do that. They can do cross-site scripting along with SSL stripping and session hijack all together for an e-commerce session. Okay. So number 10, we put down delayed traffic due to encryption or decryption. For 11, the purpose of man in a browser is to capture session data, such as account login, using proxy Trojan or keylogger. So a proxy is a system that negotiates traffic, that passes your traffic or filter your traffic to another system. Okay. Companies use many proxies to really, set it to different paths, so that way it can be quickly go to, to the destination, or it could be filtered. So for example, like school district, they like to use proxy to filter out all the, maybe block certain requests from student's computer. So if they do a proxy Trojan, right, it records all the proxy traffic logs, and then it will be able to send that back to the attacker. So for 12, in the SSL TLS stripping attack, it changes your hypertext. Oops, I'm sorry. It changes your hypertext transfer protocol secure, which is your HTTPS connection, to HTTP. So it strips away the security, the S part, right? And it, because HTTPS uses TLS or SSL, that is a symmetric encryption. And so when you use symmetric encryption, you're using one key to lock and one key to unlock, right? So what they would do is they would intercept that, and when it negotiates, when it goes into the negotiation, it generates the key, okay? And so they would take over and redirect to an HTTP page, which could be their site or something that they set up to for reroute. Any questions? Okay. The intention behind MAC flood filter, right? And this is often on your switch in your network. It overloads the physical port with different addresses, like what we talked about earlier, making the switch run out of memory. Okay. So it can't add any more addresses or revert back to what was stored to really filter anymore. Okay, because when your system is connecting to a network, it needs to physically connect to a switch, and that switch will bring it to other switches and then eventually the router, right? And on the switch is a table. It's called address table. Okay? And what that does is it keeps record of which system is sending and receiving in what part of the network, like we say segment of the network. So when the memory is depleted or unusable, right, it's inaccessible, what happens is it won't be able to retrieve any kind of information that was stored. Okay? So when you exhaust the memory on the switch, you cause a flood. And like I said before, a good administrator would enable the prevention for the flood by configuring it to prevent looping and flooding. They can also generate a continuous loop for your switch. It sends itself, right? And then it won't connect anybody, and that's how I can take out a network segment. And then we want to disable the ports that's not used, right? And monitor our ports. Okay. So as you look through, so let's just look at the notes real quick, and then we'll come back to these shortly, okay? Okay. MAC cloning is MAC spoofing. That's just another term for it. So you change your MAC address to another address. This is just to prevent the monitoring system from picking them up, okay? And so now ARP, address resolution protocol, it is used to translate IP to MAC, right? IP could not, it doesn't have to be permanent, so it can be associated with the MAC address, which is a permanent address. So in an ARP, you have ARP request and reply. So when you scan it on the Wireshark, you would see like ARP, request, reply, right? So in the request, it's going to broadcast the address. It says, who is this IP address? So that's what the switch does. right? It connects to the system and it's gonna say, oh, who is this? Right? That's trying to contact. So it sends to everybody. Then the system that has an IP address is gonna say, that's me, right? It's kind of like saying, who's Tom? And then the person in the room said, that's me. And that's how it associates that system with that IP. Now it is vulnerable because once it established that connection, it's trusted. Okay. So once you get the reply, it knows it as a legitimate reply. So what the attacker will do is they're gonna generate the reply packets. Come on in, Russell. Okay, I'm gonna pause.
I can wait till you're done.
No, go ahead. I can go on forever. So so this is Mrs. Rivas. She is the director for apprenticeship. Some of you already met with her and know her.
Faces.
Yeah, but she wants to talk briefly about apprenticeship and your voucher and what the program will be beneficial to you.
And let's have coffee online. I'm just kidding. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to be here. Appreciate it, Casey. So I'm Rosalinda Rivas. I'm actually in the bungalow next door, so that's where you can find me, bungalow 15. I'm the apprenticeship director. I'm new to Moreno Valley College. I've only been here since last week of August, which is really like September. Count it. I'm coming from Chaffey College. We have a registered apprenticeship program here at Moreno Valley College. It's the IT and cybersecurity. And a lot of that, you have a question? Oh, no, it's okay. I saw the hand like that. So I was like, oh, question. Feel free to interrupt me at any given time, just so that you know I'm comfortable with you asking me a question just as I'm speaking. I don't get offended. So the big overview is under registered apprenticeship program here at Moreno Valley College. This program allows you to have free tuition. So basically your classes would be waived. The way that is you need to email me. It's still a little on the old fashioned way. Once you sign up for your classes so that I can go in the system and fly them. Okay, the other thing is, another advantage is that we work with you to assist you with your resume and job placement. Okay, so that you can get an entry level position in an IT, unless you already have some IT, you're already ahead for cybersecurity, then it would be an entry level cybersecurity position. While you're working, you will have a mentor, supervisor, someone that's going to be working with you, and they're going to enter the system when what's called work hands. They'll enter the system, how you're performing, how you're doing. It's not like a grade, it's basically on competencies. So if you quickly pick up on certain skills, they're going to say, okay, you have competency in this category. And then this one, you're progressing well, right? You're doing well, you're learning, needs more help. And so once you hit all the competencies that are in there, along with taking the additional coursework that you need for the apprenticeship certificate program, you can not only earn the college certificate here at the college, you can also earn the what's called the Department of Labor, which is a federal journeyman card, and the Department of Apprenticeship Standards, which is for the state of California apprenticeship card. So you basically earn 2 certifications, one from the feds, one from the state. You're in the college one. If you want to continue and take the other classes, so you can earn an AS degree, you can also take the new one that Casey just got approved by the state of California, one of the few in the state, for a cybersecurity AS degree that's going to be starting, I think, in the July, right, in the fall.
Yeah, they amended, so your current classes will go into those. So they put them on internet this week. So yeah.
And that's all Casey. She has been working hard. As a matter of fact, the IT and cybersecurity program, those programs are developed by Casey, and she also has created the pathway to Cal State San Bernardino. So if you graduate, no, I said that wrong. That's terrible. When you graduate, right? When you graduate with your AS degree for cybersecurity, you can transfer over to the apprenticeship. You can do the regular program as well, but you can also do the apprenticeship because you're already in the apprentice here program with them. And so your cybersecurity bachelor courses will now be covered under them. And so basically you can earn an AS degree and a BS degree, no BS on that, at Cal State San Bernardino.
For little cost. Yeah, so they have an apprenticeship grant that covers that. So when you do the apprenticeship here and you got work experience here, you can continue that work experience with the same or a different employer for the next 2 years when you finish your bachelor degree there. So you get paid work experience. You are treated as a regular employee. and you're finishing your bachelor's degree. So they are also covering exam vouchers if you want to pursue other ones down the line. So
And those exam vouchers is from another grant that Casey helped us out with. Big kudos to Casey. All this is Casey, you know, you're seeing me as the face, but the true credit goes to Casey. And so we were able to get, we have a grant that's called the ACCA, which don't worry about the name, where we're getting funding to pay for the A+ certification, plus network and security.
So you have options to do 2 out of those 3 right now, right?
Right.
Because we were only able to get a certain amount of budget, so you can choose A+ and network plus, or A+ and security plus as you complete those classes. But if you have some certification already and you want to pursue others, you can. You know, down the line, we will offer CYSA or Pentest Plus. We did look at the budget, so.
Yeah, we're incorporating that, and those are all the certifications. So, in order to qualify for those student vouchers, even though you're all taking the class, only those that are in the registered apprenticeship program are the ones that are eligible for that. So I just kind of want to make it clear. The difference between taking the classes as you are now to being a registered apprentice is basically, you pay for your classes and you're not going to be able to tap into the funds that are under registered apprenticeship. The reason it's under registered apprenticeship is because the governor has put a big motion with the state of California, as a matter of fact, nationally. It's also a huge thing. Apprenticeship is big, oops, sorry about that, nationally. So there's funding and grants specifically for those that are registered apprentices. So the goal is to have you come to school, get the training. You also get the work experience because you're going to be working for the company. You're basically going to go from probably a full-time student to working full-time and coming to school part-time and finishing. And you can finish anywhere between 1 to 2 years, depending on how quickly you take the courses. All the courses that you've already taken prior to apprenticeship that are under the coursework, you automatically get credit for. So it's not like you have to take it again or take additional classes. But it allows you to work. If you're a student that's saying, you know what, I just want to go to school. I don't want to gain the work experience right now. I don't want to worry about that. That's okay. Everybody's in a different place in life, right? Because maybe you cannot work in the US, or maybe you don't want to because you have other obligations, right? Or maybe you have another job and it pays more than an entry level apprentice, right? So maybe you just want to finish your education. You can do that as well. So don't feel pressured. You know your story, but if you do sign up for apprenticeship, you have to be committed to pass your classes. Okay, you have to take once you start working, you have to take at least one class a year. At least one class a year. You can take more, but a minimum of 1 class a year. You have to email me and let me know that you're taking a class. You know, because otherwise you're going to come back to me next semester and say, "Hey, I'm being charged for the fees. What happened, Rosalind? You said it was free, right?" Part of that requirement is you got to email me because, you know, I don't know unless you tell me, and I can't be looking up every single student because it's only one person. We're looking to revamp the system a little bit with the district, so we're going to get some support, so we'll be able to look at it, and then you won't have to email me. We'll just look it up automatically. So we're not there yet, but we'll get there. Question.
Sorry to interrupt. Is it just the apprenticeships are just for cybersecurity, or is there any other tech courses where this would apply to as well, like web development?
Under CIS
Love
right now,
Question.
under CIS right now, as we speak, the only 2 programs that are approved are the IT and the cybersecurity, which is under the same umbrella. We did look at potentially put in programming, web development and things like that, but it hasn't been fleshed out. There's only one me, and
Yeah.
so I want to really grow this program and focus on building the employers, but yeah, there is a need in other areas, and we talked about that.
Now I'll tell you the gray area. You want to hear the gray zone? You know, black and white rules, and you have the gray zone.
Yeah.
You know, you guys like anime?
Yeah.
Who watches anime? Okay, come on, am I the only one? Yeah, I got kids. You know, I watch it with kids, and I had to go out and take with them. All right. Who plays video games?
Most of them.
Okay. All right. So, in the world of anime and video games, you get superpowers, right? You can tap into other stuff, right? Okay, so tapping into other stuff is the gray zone. It's the magic section. So if you sign up for, let's say, the IT apprenticeship program, but your major is, because you brought up the question,
Web development.
web development, right? So because all your classes are covered, as you're taking your web development classes along with the IT certificate,
They're
Right.
free.
guess what? Your tuition is covered. Now, I can't get you a job as a web developer, but here's the key thing, my gray zone, right? With the employer, I can sell you, oh my God, I'm trading, right? Isn't that what we're doing, video games? Swap, trade, okay, I know that they also kill and take their goods, right? We're not gonna kill anybody. You know, we live in the real world, you know, I only have one life, I can't recharge, you know, so don't try it on me, I got kids at home. So you can, I can sell you in the sense that when I speak to an employer or employer engagement specialist speaks to an employer, they can say this is an IT, but he's got web design skills. So if you want to put him in web designs along with IT, you can, and they're going to be like, oh, more transferable skills. I like that. They get all excited. So guess what? It makes you more what?
Marketable.
More valuable to. employers.
Absolutely more valuable. And it's a great way for you to work the gray zone, right? Right? Keyword is work. You gotta work for school, you gotta be willing to work the part-time job or the full-time position, and you could still end up getting your AS degree in a different major, even though you're only gonna do the certificate program. You could even do two. You can take, because, oh my gosh, you're so gung ho, right, gentlemen? Is there any ladies in here?
No, sorry.
Hey, gentlemen, you need to recruit women for this classes. You need to get your sisters, your cousins, your neighbors, and get some women in here. Okay? Seriously, we need you to help us bring in more women in this field. Okay? You think you're laughing at me, but I'm serious. Okay, I'm serious. Real talk. So what happens is, when you're taking the classes for, let's say, the IT certificate, right? Let's keep it simple. You're doing your web design apprenticeship, and then you're like, oh, this is kind of cool. I think I want to do cybersecurity too. You can earn your cybersecurity AS degree simultaneously with your web. Because some of these courses, the way Casey has magically done this is some of these courses, depending on the program, some of the classes may cross over where you may get a credit for one or two classes in the other field. So you can earn 2 degrees along with a certificate, the state and the Fed journeyman card.
Yeah, so
Tuition free.
so the
No student loan to keep
if-
all that money,
if you're
financially
gonna go
yourself.
for the cybersecurity certificates, because there are two, right? There's the analyst and then there's the specialist. There's some overlapping classes. So, but if you also go for the IT specialist and the cybersecurity, you actually hit the majority of the AS IT security degree. Now, can you transfer without having to finish the associate degree? Yes. Cal State San Bernardino said yes. Just when you take the same classes there, tuition is different. We cover your tuition here under the apprenticeship. So you can do like 3 certificate under the apprenticeship and get an associate degree and then move on and not pay anything here, right? And then take the upper division classes at Cal State San Bernardino when they talk about, you know, advanced security and management strategies and all of that, and finish out the bachelor degree and still be in the apprenticeship there. And if you're in the apprenticeship there first, you get a job out of when you're in school and then leaving school. Second, you cover for vouchers additionally there, and potentially also your tuition is discounted.
And do you
so-
know how much the vouchers cost or the testing? Have you guys looked it up yet?
At
What
least
is, what are we looking at? How much?
400,
400.
$150, $200.
200 something. It adds up, right? And here you could get it for what?
Free.
Free, right? All right, so I know you want to know, okay, so what's the bad side of this, right? What's the bad side of this? The bad side of it is that if you do not have the right to work documents, which means the hiring paperwork that's required by Department of Labor by companies, it has nothing to do with us in education. So if you're not eligible to work in the US, you cannot be part of the apprenticeship program, because part of it requires you to have like a social or ID,
Tax ID.
anything that's going to allow you to work in the United States. If you're a US citizen, it's automatically a yes, but you can have foreign documents as long as it allows you to work in the US, then you're good. International students with the right to work, appropriate documents, you're good. But you have to have those documents. So that's the bad side of it. So It's pretty much for everyone, but I say not really because we have to follow the Department of Labor laws that supersedes it. So I just want to share that with you. So that's the bad news, but everything else is pretty good, right?
Yeah, so the obligations is that when you take these classes, at some point you are gonna have to work. And the minimum hours is 144 hours. So as long as you fulfill that, right, your tuition is free. And you can't continue to work more than 144 hours. So for example, some of my students that went for apprenticeship, they're still working there 2 years later, right? Because it's a part-time job for them. They can have two part-time jobs in IT and they go to school.
Or a
So
full-time job, because like Loma Linda is
Yeah.
picking them up full-time.
yeah,
Many
so
others
some
are.
employers, they hire you full-time. So we did have a candidate that took my class a couple semester ago. He's now with Loma Linda full-time. So it depends. Some employers want only like 30 hours. Some employers, they will bring you on as 40 hours. So with full-time, you get benefits and everything else like a regular. You're a regular
You are
employee.
a regular employee.
Mhm.
You are. Go ahead, sir.
What's for apprenticeship, what is the starting?
So great question. So starting with no experience, like an IT help is anywhere between $15 to $17 an hour to start.
Sometimes higher.
Yeah, sometimes higher, but like on the low end, that's the average low end.
She always gives you the low end, but I do hear higher offers.
And I negotiate, I'm starting to negotiate more with companies to be more competitive,
Mhm.
but that's like the low end, but I'm like, oh, that's gonna change.
But but you don't stay at that rate forever, right? When they sign an agreement with us, they actually have to have a scale. Like when they review you and if you do well, like after probationary period, yeah, so they do
Yeah,
give
thank
us
you
a
for
scale.
saying that, I forgot.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do have stackable salary increases. Go ahead.
How many job slots are there? Or is there as many as the apprenticeship supply?
So right now, we don't have that many employers. Let me say that. We just started this about 3 semesters ago, so we were MBC is 3 semesters in. Right now we have a few employers that are looking for candidates, but they're not ready. So let's talk about being ready, because I forgot to mention that. I'm so used to doing my PowerPoint, which it's in my hand. I forgot to put it on. You have to take the CIS-25 class. So if you've taken the CIS-25 and you did your practice exam, right? And you scored 80% or better, then that makes you eligible to work. But maybe you took the class, you didn't score 80%. Work with Casey, and then she'll have you do another practice test. As soon as you hit 80% on the practice test, then we can start working with getting you placed on the job. Now, just so you know, today we met again with Riverside County. The County of Riverside is going to open up an IT cybersecurity apprenticeship, but I guess it's only going to be for NBC and RCC cybersecurity and Cal State San Bernardino. We
You
include
know
them
how
together.
long it took us to get them? It took almost 2 years for me to get Riverside County on board. Like
Yeah.
we went to 4 meetings with them. You can also do apprenticeship with Robert Half. I posted the flyers, and Robert Half can also plug you in. But you know, if you want to work with Rosalinda, you can work directly with her, and that's for our district apprenticeship.
And with Robert Half, they're gonna verify with me that you're registered in our registered apprenticeship program, because even though they're doing it, since we're covering the tuition under their positions and stuff, they're gonna verify with me as well. So. Something to definitely.
How do I register with you? Do I just email you? Do you have a
So
card?
I'm so glad you said that.
I put it-
See my email up there?
Yep.
Right there, right there, and right there. All over the place, right? Or just walk over next door and knock on the door, because it's always locked, so just knock on it and I'll hear it.
Oh,
Um,
are you usually in there?
yeah, but I'm gonna tell you, the best way to do is we're gonna do it on Zoom, because it's a lot of farms. And so what I could do is, if you email me, I'm gonna send you a link that's gonna say sign up for, it's a 90-minute, but since we already did this, it'll probably just be about 30 to 45 minutes, because I'll just go over the documentation. So on the email subject line, just say Casey's class. That's gonna trigger my memory, like, oh, you were in here, so you don't have to go do the whole long version of it. And then I'll schedule you for, I'll put down the 60 minutes, but we'll probably get done way before that. And then we could even do it as a group where I show everyone on Zoom, and then I'll give you the links, or if you send me an email, I'll give you all the forms ahead of time. And then when we meet, I'm gonna explain each of the forms with you, and then you can just finish filling them out, and then email them back to me. It's gonna say on the documentation your social security number. Do not give me your social security number on those forms. Give me your student ID. Where it says social security, you're gonna leave it blank. I will verify your social security. You'll have to show me your card or a passport, anything that's on the I-9 documentation. And then I'll just verify on Zoom in a private room. I'll put you in a little room individually, so not everybody sees your number. And I will need it in order to register you in with the Department of Labor and Department of Apprenticeship stuff. So I will need your social, but I don't want it on the documents because you're gonna email it back to me. And I haven't figured out how to do that where they can do it through Adobe where it's private. I haven't figured out how to do that. So the meantime, I'm trying to just don't give me your social, give it to me with that, and then I'll check it.
So-
That should be, but not a big deal.
So in fall, if you are ready to work, right, you can sign up for CIS 200. That's when I can help you revise your resume. And get you, through the practice test. If you didn't do it the first time, then also get you ready for interview. The majority, I'm gonna say 95% of my students that have done the CIS 200 got hired and working. Okay, the class is usually really small because, as you know, we just started out. So last semester, we didn't offer it this semester because there are only 2 students that signed up. But the prior semester, there were 8 students that went through. Alfonso that just left earlier because he has to go to work. He was part of that group and he got hired. So like all the candidates that by the end of the semester, I don't care whether it takes me the whole semester, I'll get you hired somehow, at least by one of the employers. So we have employers that are looking, and and if it doesn't match what you're looking for, you can wait a little bit and then we'll find others for you. Because sometimes city of Moreno Valley will hire, sometimes different entity will hire, and it all depends on when that is. So if, let's say, you go through one semester and you don't get hired, you can still take CIS 100 again, because you can take it 3 times. Okay, and then I will get your would be priority, and sometimes we get them hired in the summer or in the winter. So in between, they would still we continue to work with you even though you finish out my class, and all that class is to get you ready and going.
And then the other thing too, in regards to the fall, mid-August is the goal for the County of Riverside to start picking up apprentices from our program. So that's when we're looking to implement it. So it's good timing. So it's good timing when you mention that. And then we're looking for the future. One of the things that we're looking to do is get some additional support for you in regards to the job readiness prep, so that won't be in your hands so much. So that when you do the 200, it'll actually be true work experience.
Where I came from, they have a whole work experience team. So
Yeah.
so like there are like 4 people that help students with various things. So
It's very time consuming, and the fact that Casey does such an amazing job and works well with you is phenomenal. So anyways, if you're interested, please reach out to me. Next week, I'm not here, just so you know that, but the following week, I can schedule a date and time. You just tell me in the email. What are you gonna put on the subject line?
Casey's class.
Casey's class, and then you can throw your name on there too, so I could do a quick fight. And then just tell me if you prefer morning or afternoon. And then what I'll do is I'll give you a 60-minute slot, and then you find time on my calendar. And with that 60-minute slot, actually, if I do a 60-minute slot, it only books it individually. I'm gonna give you the 90-minute slot, but we'll probably get done within 30 to 45 minutes. Okay, let's do it that way. Because on the one that's for 90 minutes, basically all of you can sign up if you choose to coordinate. You can pick the same date and time, and it'll put all of you in the same slot too. But if that's not gonna work, because people have different schedules, then don't worry about it. Find what's best for you on my calendar. My calendar gets really packed really quick, so. If for whatever reason, you can send me an email and say, you know what, there was nothing for the next month, send me an email, I'll find time on my calendar and I'll rearrange some stuff, and I'll do that. Because sometimes people will look and they're like, there's nothing for like 3 weeks or something. And so I'll find time in there or reschedule something or figure something out, okay? Thank you so much.
Thank
everyone.
you,
Thank for your time.
Rosalinda.
I hope you're interested. Please take advantage. You know, this is a great opportunity for all of you to do. Casey, I'm sorry to interrupt class, but thank you so
Okay.
much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank
Alright.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, so if we don't get through this, we'll finish the rest on Wednesday. We only have about 15 minutes. Do you have any questions for me regarding the program or anything like that? So I will have the associate degree classes posted soon on a flyer, and I'll share that with you in your course room on campus. Okay. All right.
The associates.
I'm sorry?
Do you have to like take an English course? for
No.
that? No?
The only general ed classes that you're gonna have to take is a statistic course
Okay.
and a very basic math course.
Okay.
Yeah, so for cybersecurity, I talked to Cal State San Bernardino, and if you transfer, it's not an ADT, associate degree to transfer, so it doesn't require STEM major math and heavy stuff.
Yeah.
You can, and when you get there, you can pick. There are different areas in cybersecurity, like with criminology and justice administration,
Right.
that there's some forensic area, and then, or you can do the general cybersecurity one. Okay, but yeah, so okay, let's try. Okay, so how about if we stop at like maybe 20, and then, you know, if you want to finish the rest, we can finish the rest. Okay. All right, so we talked about MAC flooding. We also need to touch on the ARP poisoning. So ARP request and reply, you would see ARP poisoning attacks coming through as using man in the middle and denial of service. Okay. So basically they want to intervene, and then they want to be able to disable your service in some form. Okay. And so other areas, you also have DNS poisoning. You also have different type of DNS attack, as we touched on, you know, enumeration and stuff last week. So for the DNS attack, you would see DNS poisoning, also farming, right? And then denial of service against the DNS. So all the web server, all the website that you see out there is attached to a DNS, right? And a lot of times, if you do see denial of service, usually they target web server because they are publicly seen. Okay. And so the DDoS, that was just a group of system that's going to target a certain domain. So the DNS, its job is to resolve IP to a fully qualified domain name like www.google.com. So now when you want to prevent the DNS poisoning, you want to use DNSSEC. And this is known as the domain name system security extension. It allows the server to protect its records. Remember how we looked at last week, right? We saw the CNAME record, we saw the A record, but we didn't see additional records. So they can scan to look at the records on the DNS using tools like that. And then they can modify the record, right, to intervene. That means that they can do a man in the middle once they modify the record. So when they modify the DNS record, it's poisoning that record. So that's a DNS poison attack, okay? And on Windows OS, okay, your host files are located in this path. So why do we care about this, right? By default, that's where you're gonna go and find your host files. On the server as well, where do the records exist, right? So if you know the location, you need to really protect that folder and making sure that limited access to that folder. So your host files are in the drivers directory. You see that? Okay. And it's under the system 32. So we don't want everybody to be able to access that. We want to make sure that we protect that because it has the essential sensitive files that we want to make sure our system contains. Any question? Okay. Okay, so before I start typing, sorry, let me pull down. So where can you find the DNS information? That's on page 4. Farming, it talks about, that's also another DNS attack. So that's just changing the way that the DNS is resolved. Amplification. Amplification can be a lot of different things. Smurf attack is one, like you can ping someone to death. Usually you would see spoof in the IP and then they would do massive amount of ping. Network time protocol, your NTP. This is an amplification attack and it uses monolith command. So in Linux, that is a way that we can send 600 hosts that's connected through that server at once. Okay. So for the NTP attack uses monoliths and it sends a lot of hosts. Doesn't necessarily, by default, will be 600, but you can have a lot of hosts connected to that server. They will spoof the IP and then it will flood, right? With the details from the 600 system. So it will just broadcast by asking for the time. So you know what NTP does? You know, whenever you have daylight saving, your smartphone will automatically update the time. That's NTP, you know that, right? So because you connect it to T-Mobile or Verizon or whatever, when they update the time on the server, all the system that's connected to that network, that server sends all the message out. So in a monolith command, what it does is it's going to request for time 600 times, like from 600 systems. So that will just overwhelm the system, right? Because normally we update the times based on the network, your system sporadically requests. But when it does it at once, what will happen is the NTP server will be overwhelmed. So time is important. It's used for synchronization with database. It's used for server to be able to replicate to other server. So we have a system that's dedicated to managing time for the rest of the network. And its job is to make sure that all the time on our network is the same. Okay. This is why you get your time updated automatically when you're connected to those ISP. Okay. 2 more questions and then we'll finish up on Wednesday. For 19, how can administrator identify malicious domains or website? You should analyze the DNS log files, okay? Because sometimes if you have a poison, they modify your records and also generate a log. And then you should, that's a typo, sorry. You should monitor traffic. The replay attack, they capture your network information, they modify your data, they can also capture your initiation vector, right, through the traffic, and then they can impersonate a certain client in the original session. Okay, you can do replay attack using Wi-Fi Pineapple, you can do replay attack just scanning and using other tools in Kali. It's a common initial attack for a lot of people who start learning how to attack because it's visible, it's seen. So in this attack, there are a few things that you need, right? Impersonation is one of the approach, right? Session capture, and then man in the middle. That's what you're doing too. So a lot of these attacks, you're gonna see that you have other attacks that's umbrella underneath. All right, so we'll stop here and then we'll finish up the rest on Wednesday so you can just save your work. If you want to finish on your own, the notes are available. And so I will cover the rest on Wednesday. We are going to do a brute force session on Wednesday. Okay. And then maybe a little bit of the defense side. I always teach you offensive security, but I want to also show you how you can fix the system as well. So we'll do a little bit of firewall configuration, but we are going to do some brute force on Wednesday. We'll play with Windows this time. Not these windows, but we'll use a Windows virtual machine because I don't want you to hound me about teaching your students to brute force our own system. Okay. So yeah, so we should have enough time. Okay. All right, save your work and then put it on the cloud or save it on your USB. Okay. And then make sure we shut down the computer before we leave, and I'll pick up the rest. I'll share with you the rest on Wednesday. Let me stop recording.